I learned something new today. I asked the local Alexa about what the forecast was, and she told me the weather. So there you go. We are officially sponsored by Amazon with Shoot the Forecast.
Shoot the forecast. I love it.
Shoot the core cast.
Welcome to Shoot the Corecast, the official companion podcast to the RF Generation Shmup Club. This is a family-friendly shmup-themed podcast that loves candlelit dinners, long walks on the beach, in Truxton, and Truxton at home. I'm Addicted, also known as Addicted to Shmups, and with me as always is...
MetalFRO, also known as Game Boy Guru. And if you would like to connect with the podcast, you can do so in a number of ways. You can follow us on Twitter or X at ShootCoreCast. You can follow me directly at Game Boy Guru. We're also Shoot the Corecast on Blue Sky Social. Check out our Linktree page, which has links to all the feeds and various things. That is linktr.ee/shootthecorecast. And that has a link to our Discord server, which you should definitely join so you can join in with a future playthrough, participate there, talk about shmups and gaming in general, and just join a real fun community. The server's become very lively lately and a lot of great discussion. And so lots of good stuff there.
No.
And you can also follow me on Twitch in case you want to watch me stream our game of the month each and every month. That is twitch.tv/Guru Game Boy.
I think the reason why the Discord's been so lively lately is got to be all those Mudane memes.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've had I opened up a tech channel, Tech Talk, because there was so much technical discussion going on about CRTs, PVMs, scalers, and equipment to hook all this stuff up, switchers and all of that. And so there's been a ton of discussion on that here lately, and so that's been kind of cool.
Nice. I learned something new today. I asked the local Alexa about what the forecast was, and she told me the weather. So there you go. We are officially sponsored by Amazon with Shoot the Forecast.
Shoot the forecast. I love it.
So I gotta wonder if we got Truxton home. Do we have Truxton for elder people here? I want midlife crisis one. Make it happen.
You know what? I don't know.
All right. Well, now that we've got
That's
our obligatory dad joke out of the way, let's get going. All right. So Esploda 2, it's still kicking my butt. I don't know what more to say on that one. I keep trying.
Yeah, I haven't really made much in the way of progress here lately, but someone in the Discord did encourage me to start changing my approach. Actually, a couple of people encouraged me to maybe change my approach because I've been trying to incorporate scoring and, all of that so I can really get a good feel for it. But we're coming up on the end of the year. I'd really like to clear at least one more mode. If I don't get arcade cleared, I'm okay with that, but it would sure be nice to clear Black Label because I've been spending so much time with it. And so I've shifted my focus to a much more safety-based type of run and much more survival-based. Not really scoring, using Kakase only for either safety on a pattern or damage farming on bosses and things. And generally speaking, that has helped in a couple of spots make some stuff, particularly in stage 4, a little bit easier. And so if I could get to where I wasn't taking stupid deaths on either the stage 3 or stage 4 bosses, or both sometimes, I really feel like I've got a shot at clearing it. My stage 6 is definitely weak, but I feel confident-ish in stage 5 mostly. And so I'm hoping that I'll be able to pull out a win before the end of the year. In fact, I'm really hoping I can find a way to clear it by the end of October, if not before, so that I can shift my focus to arcade and really buckle down on trying to get some kind of clear on that, even if it's a cheese clear. I posted a video in the Discord about someone who did I guess tutorial's the wrong way to put it, but basically a commentated run where they said, this is the easiest way to beat Espgaluta 2 arcade. And it's literally pick Asagi, and here are a few strats you need to know, a few things that you need to do, but otherwise, here are the basics. And the run made it look very easy. It's not. I'm sure it's not. But if I could follow that, maybe I can at least get reasonably close. So that's my goal, is to clear Black Label with Agaha, and then at least attempt to clear arcade with Asagi. So we'll see how that goes.
That's very good goals. I'll be cheering for you.
Thanks.
I have given in to the Nightmare Before Christmas. That is Espgaluta 2.
Yes.
Right. Let's move on to the shmup news. There's a work in progress prototype of R-Type for the RE7800. It's early in development, and there's already parallax scrolling implemented. The bad news is nobody knows how it plays because no one wants to pick up a 7800 controller.
Yeah. I'm what is it? There's an adapter that you can buy so that you can use a Sega Genesis pad on a 7800. And so I'm thinking about maybe doing something like that.
Yeah, the Stone Age Gamer sells those, and I was thinking about getting those along with some of those Retrobit wireless controllers to just have wireless everything on there. But I don't know how far I want to go with the 7800. It sounds, this is coming from a person who owns two of them for some weird reason.
Right. Well, and I would pull mine out more often if it had more than just RF, so I would need to mod it. But I mean, I'd still be interested in firing this up on the Mister and see what it's all about.
Well, you could still get the get those people who are very active in Discord to tell you all about the multi-cart that comes with RGB built in.
Oh, this is true. Yeah, that's true. I want to say it only works with a particular, like it might only work with HD Retrovision cables or something like that. And it might not work with a CRT. It might only work with a scaler. I'd have to double check that.
You have to use
yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I think what happens is it uses a SCSI adapter, and then you have to solder in a floppy controller in order to get that going, and then that attaches to USB, and then from there you put it into a USB hub, and then that attaches back via the parallel port into a DB9 connector, and then from there I think that directly attaches over HDMI.
Okay, clear as mud.
Yeah. No, I just love sometimes. It's so easy. All you need to do is just splice together this cable. You got to solder your own adapter, and away you go. I'm thinking like, okay, first I have to learn how to solder. I've got to burn myself at least 6 times so I feel confident, and then they got to use the lead-free, the leaded solder, the 6040, because if you use the lead-free stuff, it's not going to stay. And then I got to take out the multimeter, make sure it's all set, test it again. No, it's just sort of how they make all these projects seem so intuitive and easy. And I'm here on step number 1. Okay, what do I need to do? I need to heat this up to 700 in the easy bake oven. So it's sadly not for me. Duke Tog was probably shaking his head, but that's all right.
Right. 2 new cheats have been discovered for the Saturn version of Gun Frontier, thanks to someone identified as Rings of Saturn. On the options screen, press the C button 50 times. Yes, 50 times. A new credit item will appear. Also, if you plug a light gun in as controller 2 and then shoot the option screen, you'll see an explosion and a new credit and stage item will appear.
Again,
I love stuff like this.
Yep. It's so easy. All you have to do is hit the button 50 times and then shoot it.
Right. But it's so cool that a game that's been out for, 25 years at least, that there are still secrets in these things that haven't been discovered yet or only just being discovered.
Mm-hmm. And then next they'll be telling me if it's played in an audio CD player, it syncs up with Dark Side of the Moon. No, these are absolutely great. I just don't know who all of a sudden was sitting there, pressed the button 50 times and found that out, or if they were just searching through the game's code or how that happened, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. It would make the Dark Side of the Moon connection would make sense because Gun Frontier would be an expensive game to learn in the arcade if you were playing on cabinet. You'd be dumping all kinds of money into it.
It's a crime. Yep.
That's right.
In Stream launch for PS4 and PS5 on September 6th, there's a number of shooters on the service for various platforms.
I've never used AntStream, so I can't speak to the quality or accuracy of the emulation, but it's out there.
So is the truth.
Ah, yes. Sorcerial Blade Cannon released to Steam on September 17th from developer and publisher Machine Code. It is a Danmaku shooting game where the character also wields a giant sword. I did see some impressions of this on another Discord server, and it seemed like it was overall solid, but maybe with some caveats. So it might be worth a look.
Sounds good. The ever popular Vampire Survivors is out. Oh, sorry, Vampire Survivor. I guess it shows you how popular it is because I called it Vampire Survivors instead of Vampire Memories. Vampire X or Cross, if you're in Japan.
Right.
Because if you call it Vampire X, you just be calling Vampire No. Vampire Memories is out on Steam now as of September 24th. From developer-publisher Queen Vampire, it's a Danmaku STG with melee elements where your melee attack can deflect some bullets. A lot of sword deflections, it seems.
Yeah. For some reason, that seems to be the thing right now.
I'll take S words for 200, Connery.
Habit, the carnival shooter from Yoshiharu Takaoka, will be getting a NES release version at some point. This is, of course, previously released as a Famicom cartridge physically in Japan, and the rework is in progress.
I forget which... there's so many darn Famicom games that come out now that I just lost track. Is this the one with the red cart that was done by Limited Run, though, so I don't think that's quite right.
No, that was Astro Ninja Man DX.
Of course. Project X Light Years has a Steam page from MK Games in cooperation with Team 17. This is a new entry in the series that started on the Amiga in 1992. It's an updated 16:9 horizontal shooter in style of the original. Yeah, good to see that there's more cooperation with Team 17 because they always do a good job of standing behind their games. They've got several ones aside from Worms that I have ended up liking, like Yoku's Island Express, Blasphemous, just to name a couple.
You've definitely mentioned Yoku's Island Express to me. and I've seen footage of it. It's one I need to check out at some point.
Yeah, it's Metroidvania pinball.
Yeah, it's a interesting combination. Kamikaze Empire is a new game from Kamikaze Kobo and publisher Henteco Dojin. There's no release date, but a Steam page is up with a demo available for download. It's a horizontal scroller where you fly around as a military girl with a limited amount of ammo. When you run out, you purposely take enemy fire so you can crash into an enemy group to take them out with the resulting explosion.
Wait, well, hold on a sec here. When you say a fly around as an enemy, or does she just take on the T-pose and start flying away saying my people need me and then kamikaze into it? What happens?
Now, these are little chibi characters.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah, you just fly around shooting your machine gun, and then when you run out of ammo, you take a hit, you go tumbling, and try to do so in a manner where your arc will allow you to land into an enemy and create a big explosion.
That almost sounds like an idea for a Team 17 game. It's a reverse Worms.
Huh. Yeah.
Or what was that one, the MS-DOS one that was very popular in time too? Bananas? Wasn't it a Q-Basic one?
Oh, yes, with the... Yes.
Yeah, Bananas and Scorched Earth, yep.
I haven't thought about Bananas in a long time.
Alright, we're all gonna... That'll be December's game, let's go.
Huh.
SNK Japan is releasing a pair of Neo Geo collections for the Nintendo Switch. Volume 1 will include Alpha Mission 2, and Volume 2 will include Ghost Pilots. They will receive physical releases, and I'm certain somebody's going to do a $150 limited run release.
Huh. I hope not, because these are literally just going to be the Arcade Archives releases on cartridge, most likely.
Well, you know, whenever they do a Neo Geo release, it's almost like they absolutely have to put it inside a big plastic clamshell and then throw in a couple pieces of artwork and call it Collector's Edition.
I suppose.
I think it's mandated by law in Japan.
Huh. Go Mecha Ball is a new twin-stick shooter from Whale Peak Games, published by Super Rare Originals. It released September 26th for Switch and PS4 and 5.
Carrot Up is a new free-to-play browser-based shooter from itch.io developer Mibile. It has 8-bit graphical style and rabbits and carrots theme. Oh, with the name Carrot Up, I would definitely hope so. I'll have to give that one a shot.
Yeah, it's a cute little game.
Well, you know what's funny?
Wasting a few minutes on
is there are more surprising rabbit-themed games that have actually been quite good, and you would think. They have Jumping Flash on the original PlayStation, and then you have Murtop, which is a cross of Bomberman and Dig Dug, where the rabbit poops bombs instead in order to kill the enemies. In things like Dig Dug gameplay, but you're pooping bombs, and it's pretty good. I think it's like $5 on Steam or on the eShop.
Oh, not to mention Robbie Olympus and...
Oh, yes. I heard people call it like Lapotus or something like that. I don't know why. Oh, well.
Huh.
Yes, there's many rabbit-themed ideas that have turned out quite well.
Plum will be releasing a Gradius 5 model kit in November.
You just gave this one to me to make me struggle. Nekomata is a vertical down-marker shooter from Sonorio, available on itch.io now. You control a cat bot trying to prevent space rats from turning plants into cheese, and that is probably the most sensical story I've read in it for a shmup in a while.
Ah. Yeah. Davila Games is working on a Mega Drive Genesis game called True Galactic Mission. It's still very much a work in progress, but it's a vertical shooter with a space theme. And it does still look like it's early in development. So temper your expectations, but could be worth a look.
I think that's a motto for our podcast too. Temper your expectations. Clear River Games has announced another Cave Games for Switch, so if you missed out on the digital releases and the previous physical versions, you have another opportunity. Very nice.
Yeah. Utopia Must Fall from Pixel Jam, released on Steam September 9th. It's a single-screen shooter that combines missile command and paratrooper mechanics and has a visual style heavily inspired by vector graphics arcade games. I picked this up on Steam recently. I haven't tried it yet, but the trailer sold me.
Fair enough. LKK Game has released a demo for a forthcoming game tentatively called Red Blue Cells. It has an Ikaruga polarity mechanic with the typical NES Famicom Plus look that LKK has used with previous titles. The full release is still forthcoming. Well, this one will definitely be worth looking into.
Yeah, as much as we enjoyed Gunnablade, I think this will definitely be worth a look. Although I did pick up their Contra clone G Warrior recently, and maybe it's just me, but feels like that game can be kind of mean.
A game being mean? No. There'd never be a game that can be mean. Crisis Win. Never.
All right. Foreshadowing.
Huga Studio is working on a game called Gunzal, a spiritual follow-up to Thunder Force games. Apparently one of the developers worked on Thunder Force 6, and while this project hasn't been developed for a while, it supposedly means redeeming the developer after the disappointment that Thunder Force 6 was for fans. Yeah, I played some Thunder Force 6, and after playing 4, it was just didn't seem to hold up, and some really weird enemies on there. I mean, reaching sort of like R-type levels of Gygeras, but it's certainly its own thing. It's not terrible, but it's just not. I don't know. It just feels like the series peaked with 4. Shots fired there, I'm sure, but to me at least, I mean, Thunder Force 5 and 6 were definitely serviceable, but nowhere near as good as 4.
I know there are some who are all about Thunder Force 5, so I'm definitely excited to cover that game at some point.
I've had 5 since it released, and it's definitely a good game, but compared to the greatness that is 4, it just... if I had to play a Thunder Force game, I'd play 4 or 3. And if it, maybe if I'm want to get back to the roots there, I would try Thunder Force 2.
Right. Well, and it's one of the reasons why, despite owning Thunder Force 5, I really haven't put any time into it yet, because part of me feels like there's no way I can live up to 4. But by the same token, I really should look at it as its own game and take it on its own merits.
Sounds good.
Despite the arcade version of Triggerheart Exelica having been recently released on Switch and Steam, the PS2 version, Triggerheart Exelica Enhanced, will also be receiving a Switch release from Cosmomachia. And this will include the new character added to the PS2 port, as well as other features specific to that version. And I got a little bit of, I won't say inside baseball, but some insight into this release. There was some chatter online, and some of it was that this would not be a port of the PS2 version, but a reworking of it, because they don't have access to the original code for some reason. I don't know if that's a license thing or exactly what it is. But the consensus I was seeing is that this is going to be a Zero Gunner 2- situation. For those who may not be familiar, the recent Psycheo ports that came out, or semi-recent Psycheo ports that came out on Switch, PS4, Steam, etc. All of those were emulations, except for Zero Gunner 2, because the company who's doing the work, they didn't have access to the source code or any of the stuff. And so they basically had to go back and essentially recreate the game from scratch. And that's why they called it Zero Gunner 2 minus, because it is basically a redo of the game in a new engine and, all of that, new assets. And so it sounds like this is probably going to be the same thing. So take that news as you will and, deal with it accordingly.
I'm just wondering if we can hook up Triggerheart Excelio to the Star Wars Battle Pod. And so that way when you spin, you really get that immersion.
Oh my. The shmup that will win, though, it's the shmup that'll win the Guinness World Book of Records for a video game that will make you sick the fastest.
Oh, indeed. Oh, yeah, add it up to R360. Just spin it to win it.
Yeah.
The Mega Drive releases of Slap Fight and Gridstormer, or V-V, are being re-released on modern consoles. This has come from Radalakia Games, so the treatments will probably be similar to the previous efforts such as Gaeres or Wings of War. Does this mean that we get a mullet with it?
Probably not.
Doesn't come with a wig, so we can give you a mullet. It's pronounced Guy R Us.
But if you're not a Toaplan fan, you might have to mull it over a little bit before you decide to buy.
Oh wow, we've gone over our dad joke quota.
Angel at Dusk from Akira Goya is getting a Switch release on November 7th.
Oh good, and everyone can understand the madness that is the story for this game.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
And this is someone who's played a lot of Battlecrest on the the PC Engine. Oh, not Battlecrest, I'm sorry. This is someone who's played... Oh, shoot. All I can think of is the intro now. Dearly Beloved. Rock On the PC Engine.
Oh, Rock On, yes.
It takes a lot to take the most incomprehensible story title award away from Rock On.
Yes.
Toho Lunatic Machines is a new Toho-inspired Damaku game from Korea. Is it? Yeah, well, as close as I'll get with my Mark MSX Japanese X, or what do we call that? Erngish?
Mark MSX School of Japanese Pronunciation.
Japanese. Boy, yeah. I don't know. I wonder if it would get better or worse after I had some sake. Oh well. It's available now on itch.io in the vein of official Toho games, but with spaceships as enemies instead of various yokai. I just picked up Toho Makuka Sai Fantastic Damaku Festival Part 2 for $4, and it's definitely a Toho game where bullets are flying everywhere and they're all different colors, and it's certainly improved. It'll be interesting to see what happens when we pick our next Toho game, whatever the heck it may end up being. But it's I think that we're going to have to throw one in for 2025.
Okay. Well, something to consider as we look toward next year's list. Star Knight, Order of the Vortex from Void Knight Games is a horizontal roguelite shooter that released on Steam September 9th.
It's amazing to see how many roguelite twin stick shooters are out there. I was saw that there's already a bundle on a Humble Bundle for all those stuff. I'm like, wow, we can actually group that many already. So, but I guess, was it Enter the Gungeon, Exit the Gungeon, Nuclear, what was it, the Cactus? What was that game? Assault Cactus?
Oh, Assault Android
Cactus,
Cactus.
yep.
That was definitely one of the OGs.
Yes. I mean, it's just amazing how many twin stick shooters there are on there with roguelite elements, so.
Yeah. It's kind of become a hot thing.
That it has. Still, this looks like it might be worth checking out. Galaxy Highways has a Steam page up to on the wish list. It's a multi-directional arena shooter from Nanopike. No release date is available.
Clear River Games has released the Toaplan Cross Psycho collection on Steam, which appears to just be a bundle of the existing Bitwave Games releases of Toaplan games and the existing Psycho Steam releases. So if you didn't already own this stuff, this might be a way to get kind of a whole bunch of it on the cheap.
That's what Steam is there for, to get a whole bunch of stuff on the cheap.
Yep.
Strato Freaks 2 from Super Freaks Stadium is a horizontal fantasy zone-styled shooter in development from the early 90s Q-em-up visual style, and alpha build is available from the Super Freaks dev page on itch.io now. Now, of course, I got that darn song playing in my head. And if it doesn't have that song in there, I'm sure that they couldn't get due to copyright reasons, but that would be nice if it played in the background.
Yeah, we would get copyright struck for sure. Shout out to Scult711 from our Discord, who is working on a horizontal shooter called Fairy Step. A version was released for Magical Girl Game Jam number 10, and on Scult's itch.io page, there's a version you can play in the browser as well as to download. It is an early build, but check it out. He's kind of been sharing links and little snippets in the Discord, and I'm intrigued.
Sounds good. And another one to keep an eye on. I swear, every time we have one of these, I'm like furiously writing down. And then 3 months later, I'm like, hey, I played this cool game. Oh, yeah, we talked about it on the podcast 3 years ago. Oh, shoot.
Right.
Raiden Nova will receive a simultaneous global digital release on October 31st, including the PC version. The physical versions will release later, though, because they're waiting on shipments of coffee and crystals. The Western physical release has been confirmed through ESRB filing. I swear that I think that Raiden 4 is the Super Mario Brothers of shmups. I think that thing's been released on almost every single platform out there, and there's like 15 different versions out there.
It's close.
And now all we need is Super Raiden Fighters 2, right? Or that's the one that we should be bringing back, is right? Raiden Fighters. I feel like the old man yelling at cloud here, but we really should get Raiden Fighters Aces collection. That's the one that they need to bring over.
Well, we'll get there. Developer Shane is working on a vertical shooter called Insomnia Pulse Suiso. This is being done in Bulo Studios' Shmup Creator. It's a Danmaku-style game and already looks promising from the footage on social media.
Another one that I'll find 6 months later and say, this game is cool, everyone should try it. So,
Yep.
Magical Stick Girl, Magical Kurun is coming to Steam in October from Desunoya. This game has been available in Japanese dojo market for some time, but is receiving a Western release now. It's a horizontal scroller where you control a large spinning stick, similar to the Kururin games, and shoot incoming enemies with a couple of different types of attack. Those were underrated, definitely. So this looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah. I got isekai'd into a shmup, which we mentioned episode or two back, having launched on Steam semi-recently. Is now confirmed for now got released on Nintendo Switch on September 19th.
Yeah, I tried this game out for a little bit on the PC release, and I liked what I played, but it definitely needed a little bit more time to become fully realized.
Okay.
It was solid, but they need to work on. If I remember correctly, this along with the game that we'll talk about once we get to the meat of the podcast here, some of the sound effects got a little annoying. Just like within Crisis Wing, if you have the darn blaster by itself, just that blaster sound continuously going sort of grated on my nerves.
Oh, okay.
Just small stuff for sure, but the foundation is definitely solid, and I think it's still a work in progress if I remember correctly. That being, okay. I got isekai'd or another world into a shmup.
Right. Okay.
Hydrogenesi. I think that's how you say it. Hydrogenesi. Hydro something. Hydrogenesi was a Commodore 64 shooter in development that never released, previously thought to have been lost. A preview of the game was recently discovered, showing promise the game had. So, is this going to be in a world where a shmup was lost? 2 archaeologists will find it again and release it to the public.
Something like that.
Sounds good to me. I mean, if they can find Polybius, they can find this.
Huh. Right. Rotschwert CS is available now from Winged Fox on itch.io. It's a Danmaku with a melee element and a minimalist graphical style.
Do you slice bullets? That seems to be the soup du jour for right now.
Yes, it is the shmup du jour.
UFO 50 from Mossmouth has released on Steam as September 18th. It's a collection of 50 small arcade-style games with a retro style. The collection does include some shoot-'em-ups, and it's been largely well received so far. This is next on my playlist. I haven't had any time, and honestly, I've been playing the game of, oh, let's get better. Oh, wait, no, I'm sick again. No, wait, I think I'm getting better. Oh, wait, no, I'm sick again. That game's no fun. Play this instead.
Yeah, that game is that game sucks. 1 out of 10 would not recommend. Kevin Min is working on a new Danmaku shooter called Tyrannus Starlit Reverie that already looks very colorful and with some nice graphical touches. No release date or platforms announced yet.
Sounds good. Darius Burst CS Core for Nintendo Switch is set for a November 6th physical release through strictly limited games. This is a pack compiles Darius Burst CS and CS mode contents, along with the Taito Sega DLC packs. Limited edition release will still be forthcoming, and if it's got all the DLC, it's got to be at least, let's see, the standard version will be $175, and then the limited edition will be $500.
Huh.
I mean, this game has probably the most DLC I've ever seen for any game.
Well, this is the one that is specifically going to be just the these specific DLC packs, and I don't believe there's going to be anything else offered. According to, if I remember correctly, what Goji Guy said in his Darius Burst video, kind of explaining all the versions.
So what we're saying here is that just the DLC is going to be $150. Got it.
No, I mean that there won't be DLC.
Oh.
It's coming with a couple of the existing DLC packs, but you won't be able to buy the other DLC
Gotcha.
because this is a special release of it.
So this is like the Pepsi Invaders type thing, where it's a special release of Space Invaders. You get what you get
Something
on there.
like that.
It's a black. This is a Dryest Burst Black Label DLC label.
Huh. Shmup creator from Bulo Studio has received updates and is now at version 1.6.2.1.
RetroNumpod on Twitter is working on a Famicom-style vertical shooter where you play as a flying crab. It looks and sounds like it could actually be running on real Famicom hardware. No word or actual platforms on release date. I hear that once you get the invincibility power-up, it starts playing Crab Rave.
Huh. The forthcoming next shmup from Zazon Zeni, the developer of Hellblasters, has reached a testing milestone where the game can be 1cc'd, including the TLB. No word on the release of the new game yet, but this far into development means it probably won't be too long.
Sounds good to me. Shannon Burton continues to showcase exciting and impressive footage of the forthcoming Sega Genesis game Lufttide. The most recent update shows a stage with a background that makes it appear as you're in a spinning tunnel. Shannon continues to push the Genesis hardware faster and further than many thought possible. Spinning are we talking sort of like Tempest 2000, or I have not seen this?
It's hard to explain, but it's super impressive. Did you ever play the game Ranger X?
Okay, yeah.
Well, there's an area in that game where you go through this base or whatever, and there's a software effect that makes it appear as though some stuff that's off in the distance moves and the perspective changes as you move through the stage.
Okay.
Think of something like that, but kind of on steroids.
Gotcha.
And you sort of get an idea as to the impressive nature of what's going on with this.
Alright, sounds good.
Bughog's next game finally has a name and a Steam page. The beat-em-up shmup hybrid will be called Armed Decobot and is slated for a 2025 release.
Yeah, I already wishlisted this, and I'm ready to pre-order and hit F5 like crazy to get my pre-order from NG Dev.
Yeah, this is exciting stuff.
Bakuri Soft's latest game is out now, titled Revel Gear Zero. It's a prequel of sorts to the previous Revel Gear series of games, and is a horizontal shooter that appears to take some inspiration from the R-Type series.
Yeah, this looked pretty solid when I checked out the footage for it. And I think Bakuri Soft has been pretty consistent so far. Arachnid Blaster is available on itch.io now from developer Orcs Mega Software. It's a horizontal shooter that has a 16-bit style and claims to take inspiration from both arcade and PC shooters from the era.
Sounds good.
And just going from memory, I recall this looking like it could be pretty cool.
Arachnid Blaster reminds me of a very early title that we covered, right, for the 2600. Didn't you buy the patch for this eventually? The actual patch?
No, actually, the patch got sent to me.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
From a listener.
Definitely cool stuff there. Keep those spiders away from your fruit.
That was Herb Wars. Shout out to Herb Wars for that Spider Fighters patch.
Indeed. That's what you should do. You're talking about putting together a battle jacket for when you go to your metal concerts on there. You've got Metallica and all that stuff, and then you just put like Atari 2600 patches. There's Spider Fighter right next to Metallica. You've got Motorhead and next to River Raid. You're all set.
I actually love that idea.
Xterra is a new shooter from Loki Striker on itch.io and is playable on the browser, as well as being a download for $5. It's a Pico 8 based vertical Danmaku.
Frisky Hearts from Ziggy Makes Games is a forthcoming vertical shooter where you battle waifus and try to either defeat them or charm them to win. The Steam page is up to wish list, though no release date is listed.
Is this just Galgun the Danmaku?
I don't know. It looks like a legit shoot 'em up, but that whole charm them thing, I'm sort of intrigued.
Sort of scared.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether this is going to be a safe for work experience or not.
You were kicked off Twitch because of this here.
Right? Yeah, that's a situation I would very much like to avoid.
The Zero Ranger Green Arrange album is now released. You can stream the entire thing on YouTube, and it's also available on Bandcamp for purchase. And Zero Ranger is one of those things that I like so much we might do sort of like a short revisit on.
I'd be down for that. I definitely need to get revenge on the main arcade mode in that because I didn't clear it. And I would sure like to go back and see if it's possible for me to clear the white vanilla mode and take out the TLB. The English release version of Changeable Guardian Estique is nearly complete. This is a Famicom shooter that had been previously released. The developer says the game is essentially the same, though the opening and ending will be different for the translated version.
Another Famicom shooter. Good stuff.
Yeah, this one looks good, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it.
Steel Knights Armis from Forces Incorporated is a forthcoming multi-directional roguelike meta shooter. Jeez, talk about a mouthful. It sounds similar to Aspirate, but has both shooting and melee attacks. Jeez, here we go again. For those working at home, that's your fifth bingo on melee attacks. It's set for a 2025 release.
Yeah. Magical Blaster from Reverse Snare has a Steam page up now. It's listed as coming soon, though a demo has been available from the developer's itch.io page for some time. This is a horizontal Danmaku with a witch theme and a chunky pixel art style.
Chromacell is out on Steam as of September 24th. From 171 Dev, this is a horizontal shooter with a 16-bit 90s arcade style and has 10 stages. This, I remember liking what I saw of this one, so I'll have to recheck this one out.
Yeah, for sure. Airborne Justice from developer Seep is set for a November 3rd release on Steam and appears to take heavy inspiration from Twin Cobra and other similar shooters. It's done as an homage to 80s arcade shooting games.
Yeah, this definitely sounds like G.I. Joe, like it's G.I. Joe Special Forces codename Airborne Justice.
If you watch the trailer for this on Steam, think Twin Cobra meets Team America.
Oh wow! All right.
So it's almost like play the shmup that'll make you think America.
Yeah, and everyone else is doing the rest in their head. Yes.
Exactly.
The other thing I would say at this point, if we're going to be going back to the 80s, let's make a Mr. T either belt scroller or shmup. Maybe a combination. It seems like everything is getting a belt scroller. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw a Smurfs or a Care Bears belt scroller.
Gummy Bears or...
Gummy Bears belt scroll. I'm sure some people would be down for that. I'd give it a shot. Why not? It's got to be better than the G.I. Joe one that just released.
Yeah, I'd play it.
Namco Vertical Shooter Blast Off received an archives release on September 26th.
Yeah, and for some reason, I did not know that this was apparently a sequel to Bosconian. So it made me think when we go back and cover those two games, maybe we should do a twofer. Cover Bosconian and Blastoff in the same month.
That sounds doable, yeah.
That might be fun. Visigun is a horizontal scrolling mecha shmup in development from Zanrai Interactive. It's been in development for quite some time, but a Steam page is finally available to wishlist. No release date has been announced yet, however. I've been following the development of this on Twitter for a long time. So yeah, this has been a long time coming, but it looks quite good from what I've seen so far.
Indigo Horizon is a new vertical shooter from Kobito. Available on itch.io, this is a flashy, low-poly inspired game with a high-contrast visual look.
A 1-minute video has been released by Pixel showing off footage of Bounty Sisters, a vertical shooter with pixel art and anime style. The video highlights some staff who are involved in the project, including Teknouchi for sound direction, Junya Nakano as lead composer, Iki Chang as composer, and the legend Ghost Sato on sound effects. The game appears to have multiple characters and ships to choose from, and the video shows off what appears to be a system where you can call upon other ships temporarily for help. There's still no release date yet, but at least now we have more than just concept art.
Is this the spiritual sequel to Sisters Royale?
No, this is its own thing.
Oh. Perp Games has announced Rogue Fight, a new roguelike Star Fox style game currently confirmed for PS5. The game will feature a heavily anime-inspired style as well as voice acting from Japanese veterans. No release date is listed, though. It currently says 2024.
Bad Computer Zero has released a demo for Frontier Force, the Sega Master System shooter in development. The demo can be downloaded from the Help Computer Zero itch.io page. This looks cool. I downloaded the demo the other day, but I did not get it moved over to my Mister's SD card yet. So I haven't had a chance to try it, but I definitely want to give this one a go.
Winds of Hysteria has now been confirmed for 2025 release on Switch and will have a physical version as well. This is a Greek mythology-themed horizontal shooter being published by Pixel. This sounds nice. Although it does sound almost like a Bandai Namco joint, right? Tales of Hysteria.
Right. Floor 84 has a Kickstarter page for a Space Invaders themed smartwatch. The campaign ends October 25th, but if successful, will produce a smartwatch with a touchscreen that would contain a playable version of Space Invaders.
Well, hopefully it's got a calculator too, a TV tuner. I'm throwing everything in there. You know, I'm beginning to wonder if the Apple Watch could probably do that too. I'm wondering on here. Space. You know what? I think is probably why this will succeed. I think because this watch is going to be powered by New Alone.
Huh.
Developer Izuwukse is working on an Intellivision horizontal shooter called Thunderchild. That already looks impressive for the hardware. No word on release date, as the developer told posters on Atari H not to expect release in 2024. Thunderchild. Is that?
This looks cool.
It looks what?
This looks cool.
Is this supposed to be? So if this is on television, what do they have? 25 buttons to play with?
Well, it looks like it's going to be a 2-button game.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's impressive.
You know, that also had me thinking, if ET was released for the Intellivision and the ColecoVision, ET could technically phone home.
Huh.
Shintendo has released the Shmup Reloaded plugin for GB Studio 3.2. This enables a number of features to help users create SDG for the platform, including 8-way movement, scrolling in 4 directions, animation control for player sprites, an 8x8 pixel hitbox configuration to allow for smaller hitboxes, the actual player sprite, improved collision detection, and much more. This is intended to replace the shoot 'em up scene type within GB Studio. Very nice.
Yeah, I read this and I had to do a double take because when I realized what it was that this was supposed to be, the wheels started turning. Not that I have time or want to, spend the time learning another application, but man, I would love to be able to easily develop my own Game Boy game. And if I could make a shmup, yeah, that would be cool. So
Yeah,
I might have to play around with it a little bit and see how much effort this would take to put something together.
well, you don't know where you'll be tomorrow, but the wheels in the Game Boy keep turning.
That's right. Viral Reload EX from Retrocade Media is a vertical shooter with a dash mechanic where you pilot a ship shrunk down into tiny proportions to fight infections. It has a 90s arcade style. No release date is set, but a Steam page is available to wishlist.
Finally, someone listens. We have Inner Space, the shmup.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then if you pre-order now, you can get Stu Goodbody as an extra level. STG is a vertical shooter newly released on Android devices. And though it was originally a PC Dojo release from 1998, it has 4 stages, includes a shooting minigame that unlocks once you beat the main game. It's free to download.
Yeah, when I saw this announcement, I decided to just try it because it was free. And it's a pretty neat little game. I would definitely say, if you're curious, check it out. I mean, it's free, so there's really nothing to lose. And I had fun with it. Magna Remora has a YouTube video up showing footage of Stage 2 and a boss fight from a forthcoming 4x3 vertical shooter called Automata. It shows multiple weapons, the ability to fire in front of and behind your craft, and what appears to be a small hitbox. It looks like it will be a combination of traditional and bullet hell styles. No word on platforms or release yet, but already looks promising.
Terran Games' next release, Crystal Breaker, is now confirmed for November 29th release for Steam and Nintendo Switch. Very nice.
Yeah. A developer known as Dune is making an Atari Jaguar shooting game called Xenowings, which is set to release in 2024 and is a Galaga-style shooter with scrolling backgrounds. The game will have arcade and time attack modes. And based on the information I saw, it looks like Atari Age will be doing some kind of physical release for it.
Could you imagine someone trying to figure out the cheat codes on here? 1, 3, 6, 8, A, B, up. I mean, it reminds me of like the cheat codes for, or not cheat codes, but the fatalities for Primal Rage for the Atari Jaguar.
Oh,
Have
right.
you seen that thing? It's like 1, 3, 9, down, left, counterclockwise, A.
Oh, that's bad.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying that this will be. I just think it's fun to deal with game controllers that could also be used as phones. I mean, this is before we end up talking to the taco, of course, but...
Right.
Shmup Creator released a YouTube video highlighting some recent projects made with the tool. Aside from a couple we mentioned earlier, others highlighted that you should be aware of are the Dodge 'em Up Heartkeeper from Arrowing Fox, Don Marco style Exaltier Nil, also from Arrowing Fox, Ravage Celeste by who is it? Humo? Yeah, Humo. I'm sorry. And currently in the demo stage on itch.io. Task Force Poncho from Rock, also available on itch.io. And Metal Crisis by Dejir. That's a heck of a lot of titles.
Yeah, that Ravage Celeste definitely looked promising. And, I mean, really everything in the list looked like it had merit, but yeah. Early Nichibutsu shooter Moon Shuttle from 1981 has been released as of October 3rd from Hamster's Arcade Archives.
Beaming Stingray is a shooter in development from Austin Dixon. The Steam page is up to wishlist, though no release date is listed yet. The game has you riding a motorcycle and piloting other vehicles in a fantasy setting. It also includes a rewind feature to help other players ease into the game.
Someone named known as Zoinkity has translated Dezaemon 3D for the N64. This game was supposed to have supported the 64DD as well, although that version went unreleased.
Wait a second, someone named Zoinkity and you don't know it's Shaggy from Scooby-Doo? I feel like that would have been his brand. His brand of edibles and smokables on there, Zoinkity.
Oh, good grief.
Oh, I'm certain that people will take that and run with that one too. Alright. Sectori from Chemo Factor Oi is a forthcoming twin-stick arena shooter with some Danmaku patterns and a dash warp mechanic. The dev was apparently from Housemarque and previously released a game called Trigonarium that is similar.
The Toaplan, some of the former Toaplan team held a 40th anniversary live stream to celebrate the company's catalog of games. This took place on October 4th, and essentially it was the official reveal of kind of a collection of stuff that we had sort of already talked about a while back, which would be a mobile game that is a collection of Toaplan's arcade catalog. And I watched a little bit of the live stream, kind of skipped around to see what I could see. And it looks like, first it'll have touch controls because it is a mobile title, but it also apparently will support Bluetooth controllers. And so I saw one of the guys there at the deal using the 8BitDo wireless stick, presumably in Bluetooth mode, paired with a tablet. I couldn't tell if it was an iPad or an Android because you couldn't really tell from the view, but that's kind of cool. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out.
Sounds good to me. When you said tablet, I was like, oh, of course, because initially I had someone pictured here with this absolutely huge arcade stick, and then an iPhone 4S with like a 6-inch screen. Right. I think it's time to bring back the Game Boy magnifiers there, the ones that run off a AA battery and enlarge the screen, or we can use the old thing that they use for all not true crime, but NCIS. We could just keep saying enhance until we can see it.
Like the scene in Super Troopers.
Oh, shit. Lots of big news from the Tokyo Game Show this year. I'm certain that we'll talk some more once we redo our often belated end of summer Darius episode here. Moss will be handling a new collection of Raiden Fighters games called Raiden Fighters Remix Collection. Little is known about the release so far, except that both JP and Western versions and all 3 games will have arranged soundtracks as well. Well, if it's Moss, there's a high chance of it getting a release. I think the only game that got released limited was Caladrius, right, from Moss. Everything else got a pretty standard release. Like Square Enix did a couple of those, didn't they?
No, I think all the Moss stuff has been handled by UFO here in the States.
What was the Raiden 4? Was that the Mikado remix? I thought that was Square Enix, or am I thinking wrong?
No, those were NIS America.
Oh, NIS America. Okay.
Yeah, Raiden 4 Mikado Remix and Raiden 3 Mikado Maniacs were both handled by NIS America. So assuming that that relationship is still solid, maybe we can expect that from them when these come out. But this is what I was alluding to earlier, is essentially we're finally going to get the Raiden Fighters games again in a form other than the lousy Raiden Legacy collection that came out on PC and mobile.
Best $2 you'll never spend. No, I mean the 360 ports are definitely solid. I like the 360 ports, but yeah, the PC version, even when it showed up for like $1.88, you said no, don't, not even for that price.
You know, I'm not one to tell you how to spend your money, but when the 360 version is so superior to it, it just seems like there's no reason to do otherwise.
Naruhodo. Alright, so Cotton Reboot 2 High Tension was also playable at TGS with photos shared on social media and showing off some screens of the game. A Switch release is all but confirmed since one of those photos shows a controller configuration screen with a Switch Pro controller. Well, why wouldn't you do it at the Switch at this point? The thing's got an install base of pack cable TV at its highest, right? I mean, I already bought 2 of the darn things, and Nintendo sent me email like, "Would you like another Switch?" It's sort of like that Hobbit meme on there from Lord of the Rings on there. Yes, we have one Switch, yes, but what about second and third Switch?
Right?
I feel like it's getting me like the Wii all over again. Maybe I'll start finding $20-$25 Switches, in like 5 to 7 years at the thrift store. That would be nice. I would welcome that. All right.
I would too.
Yeah, I sent a couple of those Switches. I think I sent a PS2 over to you too. Because I mean, for a while there was like finding them regularly between $5 and $15 for a console and a couple cables. Good times.
Yep.
Can't do that anymore, fortunately. Anyways, Therabuzz released a trailer for upcoming Mega R-Type, a homebrew port of the R-Type to the Mega Drive Genesis. Oh, for shame, you spelled Genesis wrong here. This port will include a newly arranged soundtrack, as well as an updated version of the exclusive level added to the Master System and Mark III release of this game.
Yeah, this looks cool. I'm very impressed with the work that's been done on this so far.
You know, if they say you can't do that on Nintendo.
Can't do this on Nintendo Genesis does.
That it does. One full stage of Earthyawn was playable at the event as well, and so far nearly all impressions shared on social media have been glowing. So we're going to have to talk to our man at the show as soon as he gets back.
Yeah, definitely when we can schedule with Goji Guy to record for Darius Burst, we will have to have an extended conversation with him about all the different things that he saw that we hadn't already mentioned. And I guess that's something that we probably should have mentioned earlier, but we are we're going out of order for the first time in the history of the podcast, just because of scheduling. We felt like we needed to get our Crisis Wing episode out and keep things rolling.
Yeah,
So that's what
indeed.
we're doing.
We were moving from crisis to crisis here.
Yes.
So, speaking of moving on, let's move on to the month of September where we play Crisis Wing, or as it's known in European and the rest of the world, Truxton at Home. So, those who play with us or play Crisis Wing with us for the month of September were Desolus, Hyperdread, Master Who. I keep wanting to call him Master Who are you? Who? Alright. Eat Electric Death, The Name Boss, Overdrone, and Mr. Vasteel. Thank you for playing with us.
Yeah. Shout out to Mr. Who's a relatively new member of the Discord. Really dove in.
All the Who's down in Whoville were playing Crisis Wing. The Grinch says that's the thing I hate the most. Alright. Crisis Wing originated as Crisis Wing Caravan Edition. Created for the Assembly 2017 game competition, it won first prize at the competition and was then developed into a full game. A later revision of the Caravan Edition is what became the Time Attack mode in the full game. And Crisis Wing was developed and published by Pie Slice Productions for PC. The initial release hit Steam on September 20th, 2020, as well as itch.io, and the console versions released just over a year later on September 22nd, 2021. To date, this is the only game available from Pie Slice Productions. The Switch, PS4, and Xbox versions were handled by East Asia Soft, who published those. Consequently, the Switch version released with some major problems, including no support for D-pad controls, and the PS4 version had, and as far as I know still has, extreme input latency. The Switch version has subsequently been patched to fix several issues, but sadly the PS4 version at 1.0 has never been fixed. But still, it's more playable than Concord, so what you gonna do? Switch version has newer input systems. PS4 uses the Unity Legacy input handler, which has more lag. To be honest, older Steam versions had more lag too. Legacy system is tied into frame rate, and the new system runs in sync with the game logic, so every logic update has fresh controller info. Steam versions did get better input system from version 1.04 onwards. EAS used different versioning than Steam. Console versions are equivalent to Steam version 1.03, and Steam version has the least lag. You can have higher frames to mitigate lag even further. At heart, Crisis Wing is still a Unity 5 game, with the main bulk of development was done in 5.6, and the first release versions were built in 5.6 as well.
Yeah, and all of this context was added by Pie Slice himself. I had a conversation with him on the Shmup Junkie Discord, and asked him several questions, and we had a pretty good conversation. And so there's definitely some notes that we'll touch on throughout the discussion here that are some additional context and tidbits of knowledge that Pie Slice shared. And so a big thank you to him for indulging me the other day when we were on Discord.
I gotta ask, you told me you were a Shmup Junkie. That's why he opened up to you, right?
No.
Alright, so physical versions of the Switch and PS4 releases of Crisis Wing were handled by VGNY Soft, or Video Game New York, so the game only received this treatment in North America. As of this recording, Pie Slice is working on another shooting game presently titled Air Variag, which appears to take a lot of inspiration from the Dodonpachi games. Or as I keep hearing people call it on there, Dodonpach. Apparently that's the street term for it. No release date is set, though footage of the game is in action on YouTube. Curiously, the key art for the game features the Stage 6 boss instead of the final boss, but the game's similarity to Truxton 2 with its iconic skull boss is not a big surprise as to why this was chosen.
Yeah. And I kind of gathered from some information that I heard that part of that reason might have been because originally the skull boss and the stage that was the final stage was supposed to have been the actual final stage, and there was some switcheroo that happened with that later on. And so I think that skull boss was maybe intended to be the original final boss, but certainly it's the it makes sense to go with that for the marketing.
Yeah, it definitely gives you a vibe of what the game's going to be about. I mean,
Right.
it's
And that was all. Go
well,
ahead.
I was just sort of, it's more akin to what you'd see in a Konami box art versus to what you'd see on the Atari 2600, which is, this is what we imagine the game would look like. It's an a sketch artist rendition of the game.
Right. Yeah, and of course that art was all done by East Asia Soft's in-house artist who does all their stuff. It's the same artist, I think, who did the work for the Project Starship X release and a lot of the other releases that Play Asia has distributed. And so, we've seen work from this artist before.
Just wait till 20 or 30 years from now, the people are going to seek him out and have him start drawing stuff again. Like, I forget the guy from Konami that they've got drawn for Limited Run now.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's dive into, I guess, a explanation of the game here. This is a standard Tate-style vertical scrolling shooter with a 3:4 aspect ratio. It's old school, so it's a very simple 2-button setup. Button A fires your weapon, has auto fire, and button B drops a bomb if you have one in stock. The game does have a few modes. The one-player game is just what it says. And then the 2-player game allows for couch co-op. Time attack mode, as we mentioned before, is a timed caravan-style stage where the objective is only high score. If you reach the end of the level and beat the boss at the end, you do get an additional bonus based on the amount of time left. It is a completely unique level with its own bosses and even some unique enemies. Boss Rush mode sees you facing off with all the game's bosses and mini-bosses in an extended level with power-up carriers and some enemies in between. Bosses in this mode are much harder than the standard difficulty, and there are no continues. By default, the game doesn't use a checkpoint system, so your ship respawns upon death and you can grab at least one power-up. However, checkpoints can be enabled in the options menu if you desire.
See, I
I
thought,
never messed with that, but
no, either did I, but I thought this was all, that Crisis was all to teach us about the expectations of life. You start really well, hoping that you're going to do well, and then you get that pot shot somewhere from some unknown reason. You just get shot and you die or have a mishap from a popcorn enemy, and then you have to spend the rest of the game trying to build yourself back up to where you thought you were going to be.
yeah. In the 2-player mode, player 1 controls the CW01 ship, which is the sort of red or orange color, and then player 2 controls the CW02 ship, which is blue. There are 3 weapons you can acquire during gameplay. Each one gives your ship side pods that fire the secondary weapon, while your ship itself is always can fire this dual pink shot. Each weapon type has a max level of 3. Power level 1 is active when you get the first power-up. Level 2 requires 2 additional power-up items, and then the same goes for level 3. And what happens is when you're at a power level and you get the next power-up item, if it's the same color, then there'll be a little letter P that will appear next to your score. So then you know that you're set up for the next power-up level when you collect the next one. And one thing that Pie Slice noted is that it is recommended to, whatever power level you want to be at, it is always recommended to grab one more power-up beyond that, because that remains with you after you die. So even though your ship resets to power level 1 when you die, you can still then, whenever the next power-up that shows up is, then you can more quickly get back to the next level.
You know, just like people were hoarding toilet paper on there just in case you want to kick those instincts in and keep hoarding power-ups. Is you may need that.
Right. Oh, and power-up items are dropped by these special yellow carriers that you have to shoot and destroy in order to reveal those. Of the 3 weapons, the red weapon provides you a spread Vulcan-style shot. You start with each of the side pods shooting out 2 streams of bullets, one forward and one angled. And then power level 2, you'll shoot 3 streams of bullets, and then 4 streams at max level. And this is the weakest of the 3 weapon types. The green weapon fires shots straight ahead and is known as the power shot. Each side pod will shoot 2 streams of green shots forward, and as you power up, the size and damage output of the green shots will increase. This weapon does more damage than red, although of course since it's all shooting forward, it has less range. The blue weapons fire missiles from both sides of the ship. Level 1 starts out with 1 missile pod firing on each side. Level 2 adds a missile on each side. And then level 3 sees you firing 3 missiles from each side. This weapon has the heaviest damage output, and the impacts with between the missiles and the enemies will create an area of splash damage, but its slow firing rate and unpredictable movement can make it harder to wield.
So, is there a weapon type that you use more than the others? And from there, I mean, I initially was like, green has got to be where it's at, but then I've started finding the utility of red, and mainly stayed away from blue.
Yeah, I'm a team red person, at least early, because I like the coverage. It helps with some situational stuff early on. I know a lot of people are very green in terms of, they go with the green weapon, and the general consensus that I've heard is the blue weapon is really only viable at max power and is more situational.
Right, and then the green itself is fires straight ahead, while the red gives you a little bit of a vertical or V-shaped spread, which I found a lot helpful, as you mentioned, with the at least earlier, to defeat some of those enemies, especially the blue orbs or whatever the heck those blue balls in stage 2
right.
were really annoying.
Yeah, and Pie Slice did say that the power-ups were positioned in such a way that it would make sense to switch to a different weapon at different times, and so that was intentional. The placement of your power-up items throughout the levels is intentional to give you an opportunity to switch to a different weapon that might be situationally better than what you have.
Very R-type.
Yeah. Now, each ship starts with 3 bombs in stock. When you drop them, bombs will clear the screen of bullets. They'll damage or destroy all enemies on screen, and they provide you a pretty lengthy set of iframes for your ship. You max out at 6 bombs in stock, and when you die, you do lose the extra ones, though you will start with 3 again when you respawn. Bombs, like your power-up items, are dropped by those yellow carrier ships, and For every 6th carrier ship destroyed, you will receive a bomb. Now, Pie Slice gave me some more insight on this as well. Bomb damage is not fixed. And that means that each enemy has a counter as to how many bomb hits they can withstand. And so, for example, he said boss damage is calculated as a percentage of the max boss HP. So, as an example, boss A might take 5 bombs to destroy, whereas boss B might take 8 bombs to destroy. So just something to keep in mind, that your bomb damage is not going to be consistent based on when you use them. So it might make more sense to either use the bombs strictly as a get out of danger method, or as a, I don't like this last pattern, the boss is flashing, I'm just going to bomb so I can move on kind of situation. Now, as you take out enemies, they'll drop medals to collect for score. They start at a small value, and as long as you continue to collect them before they drop off the screen, they'll increase in value to a maximum amount. If you let a medal fall off the screen, don't collect another of the same or greater value that's already been spawned, then your medal chain will drop. Stages 1 and 2, as well as 4 through 6, each contain a series of enemies where you, if you defeat every single enemy within this specific sequence, you will unlock a bonus wave within that stage. When you do so, of course, you'll receive an additional wave of enemies to destroy, which will yield extra medals and points. And if you're successful in destroying all the enemies within the bonus wave, you'll receive an additional score bonus. Stages 3 and 7 contain a super carrier that will drop either an extend item or a super medal. The extend will spawn if you don't have a full medal chain at the time that you destroy the super carrier, and the super medal will spawn if you do have a full medal chain. And so that's something you can set up. If you feel like you need more lives, you can make sure to drop your medal chain before that, so that you can guarantee the 1-up. The game does have a rank system. As you destroy bosses, collect full value medals, and maintain max power, rank will increase. Dying and bombing will decrease rank. And at higher or max rank, some bosses and enemies will have more dense patterns or harder attacks. And also, once an enemy has spawned, its rank value at the time it spawns is where it caps out. So careful management of rank can help maintain lower rank versions of enemies, particularly in the later stages where those can have more difficult attacks. According to Pie Slice, staying at level 2 weapon power doesn't increase rank, only max power does. So staying at level 2 is a way to help maintain a lower rank control. Mid-bosses and stage end bosses can generally be picked apart. Each one has several destructible components, often parts that have specific attacks. When those parts are destroyed, it will change the attack pattern of the boss to some degree. Also, bosses have specific health points that, regardless of where you're at in terms of your part destruction, will also change the boss phase and subsequent attack patterns. So this is something that you have to keep in mind as you take on the bosses, because when you get that sort of generic explosion that's not tied to a particular destructible component, that means that the boss's attack pattern is going to change. And this is also based on your current rank, and sometimes even depending on your position on screen relative to the boss phase and rank. According to Pie Slice, some enemies in the game have iframes. A good example of this is the stage 1 boss doesn't begin to take damage until after it begins to attack you. Similarly, the green cruisers in stage 4 or the wide golden ships in stage 5 don't take damage until they open and begin to attack you. Popcorn enemies also have a 100 millisecond iframe delay from the time that the enemy's center point comes on screen, so that your oncoming fire doesn't destroy them the instant the sprite spawns on screen. So a little bit of interesting game dev info there. Crisis Wing does loop infinitely, as you would expect with a Toa Plan style game. And with enemies ranking up, getting harder with each loop, background graphics changing color to signal the particular loop you're on. Your score, lives, bombs, and weapons all move forward with each loop. The game does also have a Tate mode, a colorblind mode where the power-up items have symbols on them, and support for more than 60 Hz refresh rates, and display options such as a CRT filter, a stretch mode versus 1:1 pixel aspect ratio, and so forth. There's actually quite a few options. One curious thing that I mentioned to Pie Slice is that when I was playing this on Steam during the course of the month, I could not get OBS to hook to the game. And so I ended up using just a game audio capture and then a display capture with the game full screen. I have since gone back and changed the mode in the options screen and was able to get it to hook. So it's something that I should have done early on, but I guess I just didn't dig around in the options enough to know how to do it. But if you're trying to capture footage of the game to record or stream, just know that if you're using OBS, you might have to go in and tweak your display settings to make sure that you can properly capture it. Any initial thoughts on all of that?
No, I think you covered most of it. I will say, though, that when you start getting to stuff like Stage 4, a single mistake can really get to you. Like, this game has a habit of punishing and severely punishing mistakes. I mean, it's... or made the joke with you earlier, where it's like, you must be this powered up in order to get past this point. If you get hit back, it's not quite Gradius syndrome, because you can still maneuver, but the enemies are so spongy at that point with just the regular pea shooter or regular shot that it takes forever to hit them down. It's really hard to recover.
Now, the interesting thing about that is that Ice Slice did tell me that the game is balanced around power level 1. I don't necessarily feel like that is doable for some of us mere mortals, but that is the way that he balanced it. So I guess once you quote unquote get good or good enough at the game, in theory you could recover at any point with just level 1 power and get through it.
And that was my problem. I didn't get good.
Yeah, I hear that.
Maybe if they add in a Dark Souls roll, that should work for me.
Do a Dark Souls roll.
Do a barrel roll. I'm sure someone's thinking. Yeah,
that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, it felt like the game definitely punishes you for any mistake you have, but the game didn't feel like Gradius 3 arcade unfair. So it definitely felt doable, but it felt again sort of like the not quite maybe to the extreme. What was it? We weren't playing Major Striker, but there's another one that the game was you could be doing fine, but a single mistake could deplete almost all your health and kill you. What was the one
for? Oh, sure.
Did for the DOS? It was.
Oh, Kilo Blaster.
Was it Kilo Blaster?
Or is that
No.
or Overkill?
Overkill, I think it was. Or a single mistake can really set you back. And it sort of felt like like that as well, where you there, but not. You could at least have a fighting chance. There was a possibility of getting out of it if you were good enough, as you said. But it was definitely hard to do if you're didn't have the right thing. And I think I would have done a little bit better too if I had been properly using my arcade stick, or maybe had an 8-bit Do Ultimate or something where the dead zone was on there, right? Something more responsive. I feel sort of like someone playing golf saying, yeah, if I only had better clubs, my golf game would be so much better. But when it comes to something like this, I noticed that the dead zone was really impacting. I was playing on an X1 controller, and the dead zone was definitely making a difference as I was trying to do some quick micro dodging on this, and without the ability to slow things down and do a focus shot, it made it hard because I would almost oversteer within the dead zone.
You just need to go full Craig Stadler. Can you get yours inside mine?
Oh, jeez, no. Don't bring that game sack me in here. Unless it's no tape mode. No. Family friendly here.
Yeah. I had a little bit of a roller coaster with this game early on. When I first started playing, I thought it was hard, and I was thinking to myself, this is going to be a rough month. And then, out of nowhere, I progressed really quickly. And then, out of nowhere, I hit the wall. And then it was an uphill climb the rest of the month of getting over that hump.
This is, I think that we are used to games that give you a lot more leeway for at least making mistakes and learning from here. This game demands that you learn the routing and the placement, and if it's not, it will make sure to smack you back down. And that was the biggest thing that had changed from some of the previous games, because the previous game, like, okay, so I see what I did wrong there, I can fix that. Where this game is just no. The closest I could come to it is where you're trying to follow GPS in your car and to get from point A to point B, and at some point it's asking you to make U-turn. Usually it's no big deal. It's not like every time this asks within Crisis, Wayne, every time you make a mistake, it asks you to do U-turn or you don't follow directions. Exactly, your insurance rates go up. It's definitely a high risk for almost everything there is to it, and it's present also in something that we didn't talk about is bullet sealing. Right, with the enemies, you normally do a bullet seal so that we don't shoot at you. But you get close to the enemies here, it doesn't matter if they're below you, almost off the screen, they will fire at you.
Yep.
They're like, hey,
yeah, there is
opportunity.
zero bullet ceiling.
Yep. And I also noticed that when I was through, if I was moving to the left of the screen or whatever, when the enemies would come in, they would always come in to try and position themselves so that I was directly below where they were. Like at the stage 1, where they have those blue, I think they're blue ships, maybe they're green, but ships that come right before, after the first power up. And they come in. If you're sort of at the top of the screen, and then you move to or if you're in the center, they will purposely head to where you're at to try and ram into you. It's very interesting to see enemies taking a playbook out of the out of the point blanking. What's usually it's sort of like when you're fighting some that meme that's going around, the gaming meme, with when you see the boss heal, use a healing potion to heal. The guy's upset when you do it. It's no big deal, but when the boss does it, it's a huge deal. It sort of felt like that. Hey, wait a second.
Sure.
They can't be using the Ketsui. Yeah. What's that's? I keep getting this confused here. But not the Kobayashi Maru, but the. No, I'm thinking about show them some fancy action now. Final Zone 2, but no. The way. So, like, how dare you use my own tactics against me?
Oh,
With the
sure.
point blank here, I think it sort of takes your expectations from other games and then turns them on because you are expected to. Yeah, if I get close enough, they're not going to fire. Or hey, these popcorn enemies, they're not going to. No, the popcorn enemies have all of the accuracy of a 1942 airplane. The popcorn is as deadly as it was in 1942. They're going to fire where they know they can hit you. And
Yeah,
you gotta
it's
be
like riding popcorn.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not dealing with stormtroopers here. These are accurate.
Yeah, or the if we're dealing with the Olympics meme, that guy from Turkey.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one concession that the game does make is that it is fairly generous with extends, because you get your first extend at 250,000 points, and as long as you're not leaving a lot of enemies on the table, you're going to get that pretty quickly. Your second one you get at 500,000, and then you get one at every subsequent 500,000 after that. Plus, if you purposely drop your metal chain in stage 3, you'll get the super carrier with the extend. And if you make it to 7, then you can do the same and get the super carrier in 7. And so you're talking about a minimum of what? 4, maybe 5 extends by the time you get that far in the game.
There was a spot too that I heard like a wow or something like that, and I couldn't figure out what trigger. I think it was metals, but I wasn't quite sure.
Yes. Yeah. I'll mention that when we go over the scoring. Or, well, yeah, I guess we can talk about that when we get into the sound.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the graphics real quick here. Crisis Wing is a very colorful game with detailed sprite work and varied backgrounds, and those mostly consist of lumen patterns. The one thing that I'll say about it being colorful may work a little bit against it is there's two things I noticed. One, when you start out on the stage is pretty simple, but it's almost like someone once you get to like stage 4, someone must have watched a episode of GameSack on the highlighted on parallax scrolling video games and goes, this would be cool, because everything since then is like, wow, this is pretty impressive, but it's all parallax scrolling on the stages, right, to show that depth. The second thing that I'm putting in there is it can get a little noisy with some of the bullet colors, and it's not like a Toho game where everything is, and this is a minor complaint, but because it's certainly done worse in other games. But Toho can have bullet explosions. It's it's crazy Kaplan's fireworks display going across everywhere. Those of you who have been to Indiana, where apparently you can just buy any type of fireworks ever, but I mean, everything's going off, but you can still tell exactly what you need to avoid and where it's going. The problem with this is that sometimes the bullets are colored just enough that they blend in with the backgrounds. This is something I also saw Mark MSX highlight on his review. When you're dealing with something that's busy, you can blend in. Now, this isn't something similar to what we saw with Ghostblade HD, when they just sort of blended in almost invisibly into the background. It's not that bad, but when it gets busy, this can certainly hit you out of nowhere.
Yeah, there were definitely times when I wasn't 100% sure what killed me, and I would lose a life because either things got busy and I just missed the bullet, or the bullet color was close enough to an explosion or something else that it just got obscured long enough for me to gloss over it.
Yep. Again, that's a minor complaint. For the most part, it was pretty easy to identify what it was. This isn't no Battle Garega version 1.0.
For sure.
So there are some various effects going on with transparency and higher resolution assets, such as those used for explosions and visual flare that wouldn't be possible with the 90s arcade hardware the game is otherwise mimicking. So while that's a bit of cognitive dissonance in the visual department, it still works well overall. I think we'll have to add that to our bingo card, cognitive dissonance. Most of the time, enemy bullets have priority on screen, though occasionally things can get obscured by your own fire or by items on screen, which we just talked about. Enemy design varies from basic mechanical spaceship designs to more interesting craft, and even some more enemies appear that they were mechanized insects or animals. And the overall detail for the enemy and boss designs is pretty good as well. Yeah, and wholeheartedly agree on that. And there wasn't anything that looked out of place or just was really weird or like, what the heck is this saying? Things had a pretty consistent theme throughout. Enemies and bosses fire a lot of different colored projectiles, so so many things are on the screen. Sometimes it can be hard to parse dangers, There's also enemy bullets that color cycle, which can make them stand even more, or sometimes make them hard to track, overall, great use of color. You know what the ends are. It's just when things get busy, sometimes some things can get lost.
Yeah. One thing
I don't know if you make them flashing out more. I don't. This is not compared to like Last Hope or Ghostblade. This is nothing, right? We don't have to go all pink bullets all the time, but this would be an area that, aside from the input delay on the PS4 version, that I would ask to be touched up.
Right. Yeah, the flashing bullets thing is not as distracting as it would be in something like an NMK game, for example. But it is something that I guess players need to know if you have either color issues or flashing issues, just something to be aware of. One other thing that I wanted to mention about the backgrounds, Slice mentioned that he didn't really have the resources to do full-on backgrounds like you would see in a lot of games where they're more defined and full scenes where it's like a really tall graphic or whatever that it spans the whole level. And so that's the reason why the backgrounds are the way they are, because they're just short loops due to the lack of an ability to make that happen.
Gotcha. All right, so let's move on to sound. Despite the Toplan inspiration for the base game, the soundtrack has a slightly darker tone than that of the usual Masahiro Yuge or Tatsuya Uemura fare. It's a quality batch of game music, though, and it's fitting to the action. Yeah, I didn't really have any problems with the music in general. Sometimes, if it was just the blaster itself, I think I mentioned mentioned this to you earlier. The pea shooter, its sound effect itself can get a little grating if that's just constantly going. But I didn't have anything that was overpowered or underpowered. Everything seemed to have a natural flow with the game world itself, and we didn't get any mosquito music either. I mean, everything worked really well.
Yeah, and honestly, the music or the sound effect for the main blaster, for some reason, I guess I just didn't. It didn't bother me, so I don't know. Must just be one of those things where it's going to be more of a preferential thing.
Certainly. As we talked about, sound effects are relatively understated with sound shots not overpowering the music, and enemy explosions mostly being on the quiet side except for boss destruction. There are some nice touches, as the faux or fake voice sample for the bonus wave activation and the yeah voice sample that plays when you save a metal chain, or the ta-da type sound effect you get when completing a bonus wave.
Yeah.
I
love that sound.
All I can think of is that Daytona. It all comes back to Daytona. Game over, yeah. All right. Other audio feedback that's helpful is the sound effects when you collect medals or drop your medal chain, as well as the sound that plays when you get extend during gameplay. According to Pie Slice, the background music of Stage 6 is named Unpleasant, which is a nod to the Gradius 3 song Unpleasant Cell that plays in the Super Nintendo version or Super Famicom version of the last stage. This is one of the many details mentioned when Crisis Moon was featured in the Pixelated Audio Podcast in 2022.
Yes, highly recommended to go listen to that episode.
Most of the soundtrack was composed and programmed by Pie Slice, though a couple tracks in game were inclusions from other composers.
Yeah, I quite liked the music. I found myself, I wasn't whistling or humming it the same way that I would with a lot of the music, but it definitely connected with me and I enjoyed it. And when I listened to that Pixelated Audio Podcast episode and I listened to the music isolated, not just within the context of the game, but it's actually pretty well composed. And so definitely kudos to Pie Slice for a job well done with the soundtrack. Getting into the scoring. Now, as with most old school shooters, a lot of your scoring is going to come from enemy destruction. However, everything that you can shoot in this game also gives you tick points. So the points you get from each target is going to be a combination of those two values, the base value and the tick points. The medal system that we mentioned earlier works similarly to a Rising game, where you start with a medal at the base value, and then each subsequent medal you pick up will be of equal or greater value, depending on whether the existing medals are on screen when the next one is spawned. The only way to maintain your medal chain is to grab a medal of equal or greater value to your current chain value. If you spawn multiple medals on screen at once, grabbing the last highest value medal will be enough to keep your chain alive. The medal values go like this. They start at 100 points, then go to 200, 400, 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, and 10,000. And that's where they max out. And each medal is different, has a different graphical representation. So it'll be fairly obvious as you move up the medal chain, kind of where you're at. And the medals become generally larger and more ornate the longer you go. The super medal that we mentioned before, which you can get from the Stage 3 and 7 super carrier, is worth 100,000 points. And as we touched on earlier, this will only spawn if you have a full medal chain at the time you destroy that super carrier. Taking out all enemies within a bonus wave will yield a 40,000 point bonus. Picking apart your mid-bosses and bosses will give you extra points as well, since that gives you both the additional tick points, plus the score for destroying those particular components. And then the power-up items collected of the same weapon type you already have will grant you 1,000 points. Not a big bonus with your additional power-ups, especially compared to medals, but points is points, right? And so the scoring in this game is actually a lot more nuanced than you would typically see from a game that kind of mimics that mid-90s or early to mid 90s toe plan vintage. I did appreciate the layering and the scoring. Did you engage with the scoring much?
I got a couple oh yeahs, but that was about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't playing for score in this. I was playing for absolute survival.
Ah, gotcha. Let's move on to some impressions from the community here. And I wanted to highlight this from Decilis first, because he did some work just prior to us starting in the month of September and actually did some comparisons between the PC version and the Switch version, in terms of not hardcore lag testing, but just sort of kind of letting everybody know what to expect. So big shout out to Decilis for compiling all of this, number one, because it's good information, and I'm glad that we've got people in our community who are engaged and actually care about this stuff.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
So of the PC version, Decilis says, feels great with VSync turned off. Super snappy as you would expect. With VSync on, I can feel some delay kick in. Super duper scientific feeling is maybe 1 to 2 frames more. Still very, very playable and responsive. For the Switch version, no surprises here. There's more latency than the PC. It's greater than the PC with VSync turned on, but it still feels in the wheelhouse of what we might call a, quote, good Switch port maybe. Super duper scientific feeling, around 4 frames. Other notes, menu navigation polling on the Switch version is purposely delayed. Curious that they did this. Doesn't really affect anything, but is strange. I think there are some differences in the way the bullet patterns play out between versions. I'll have to go back and confirm later, but it seemed like the timers for bullet waves on the Stage 1 boss, some Stage 2 enemies were slower or didn't overlap well for the Switch version. TLDR, if you don't have a copy already, get the PC version. It's the one to play. If you have the Switch version already or prefer to play on console, it's still very serviceable, though be warned, there may be pattern differences in the enemies. This might be a version difference overall. It's not listed on the Switch title screen like it is on the PC version. Now later up, Decilis followed this and said, some updates from further testing from tonight and this morning. The major cause of lag is my 8-bit DOS stick running in wired mode. 2.4 GHz wireless performs significantly better, and Bluetooth feels about the same as 2.4. There's also the matter of throw distance on the stick, which convolutes the input delay a little bit. Now that's, I'm assuming that Decilis is playing that with the stock 8-bit DOS wireless stick's lever. I've modded mine because I was playing the game with that same joystick all month, but I modded mine, and mine has a Famitsu LS56 in it. So obviously your mileage may vary depending on how far down the rabbit hole of stick modding you've gone. He says, I've also tested a Switch Pro controller and a pair of Joy-Cons in both docked and handheld mode. They feel equivalent to the PC version with VSync enabled in either case. Much more responsive than the stick. Joy-Cons feel pretty terrible to play with, though, I have to say. So based on, quote, feels, the input delay from least to worst would be PC with no VSync, which is better than PC with VSync, and Switch with Joy-Cons or Pro controller, and then Switch with a 8-bit DOS wireless stick, 2.4 GHz or Bluetooth, and then the Switch with 8-bit DOS stick wired would be the worst. Also, the same 8-bit DOS stick has no additional input delay when connected to the PC through X input, which is how I was using it. I also spent a lot more time in play tonight and concluded that I was imagining things with the pattern differences between versions. They are indeed the same or consistent with each other. So really, grab either version, they both run fine. Some extra tidbits from digging through the Steam patch notes and forum posts tonight. Some gameplay quirks. Letting bosses and mid-bosses escape increases rank. I didn't know that. Okay, that might explain my rank increase then with stage 4, because I always let the stage 4 mid-boss go. A mercy power-up will spawn if a player dies with a sub-weapon. You start with floating up and then moving 30% slower than regular power-ups. Now, some weapon behavior information that was apparently from Pie Slice is that at base level, the green weapon has the highest DPS. Fully powered up, the blue weapon has the highest overall DPS. And point blanking power level 2 or 3 red has more DPS than fully powered green, which makes sense, similar to a Toa Plane type of situation. A blue missile will take down any Zako in a single hit. Green has the lowest growth potential versus any other weapon, but it deals the most consistent damage. And in regards to some development and patch info, input lag improvements for PC version happened in version 1.1.3. In 1.0.4, the backend scripting was switched from Mono, which is a C# .NET framework, to C++ for a performance increase. The Switch software version is listed as 1.0.0 and has no current patch available. That's on the physical copy, not sure about the digital. Seems to be consistent with PC according to the forums and Pie Slice. And several of the System 11 Shmup forum users were commenting on improved responsiveness post-patch for Switch, so even though the version appears to be 1.0, it still received a patch of some kind. And Desla says, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Lots of good detail there. Later on, Desolus actually got into more of a casual discussion here and says, wow, things get crazy after stage 3. And maybe it's just me, but stage 4 felt a lot longer than any of the previous stages. I ended up practicing the stage 3 boss to find a good strategy so I could make it beyond with at least 4 or 5 stock of ships. It amounts to sticking to one side, taking out the gun and wing parts to make dodging easier. And it sounds like that's what BB was doing as well, because even though BB was active in the chat, he had already beat the game and so was just sort of giving the rest of us some pointers. The fight takes longer, but it's much easier. Then I just tried to hold on for dear life and bomb my way out of everything beyond. Just noticed there is a PDF manual under additional content for this in my Steam library too. This might be the first game I've noticed that with. And yes, Desolus did at some point, I believe, actually time stage 4. And it seems like it's 8.5 minutes. So it is the longest stage in the game, and it is a bit of a slog. Later, Desolus says, here's my score update for tonight. Just barely made it to stage 6, so at least now I can select it for practice. It's definitely very challenging. Despite its flaws, though, there's something about it that keeps me pushing forward. This might be the first time I've genuinely gotten invested in engaging with a scoring mechanic. Made it through 6 and nearly finished 7 blind tonight. Got myself all worked up, enough to be shaky afterwards. Oh, and extends appear to continue at 500k intervals after the first couple at 250k indefinitely. Later on, Desola says, got the loop 1 clear this morning. I dropped my chain a couple times and missed out on a decent chunk of points. Not sure if I'll push for score further yet, haven't decided. What little I saw of Loop 2 was interesting though. I'll probably check out Time Attack in a day or so. And then said, I did end up checking out Time Attack briefly, but I only put a tiny bit of time into it. Based on what Gurus had to say about Boss Rush, I think I'm good. Maybe another time. And then offering some final thoughts, Desola said, The overall presentation of this game is right in my wheelhouse. It has a great blend of classic pixel art and musical style that mimics its Stoa Plan inspirations well. I particularly enjoyed the CRT filter options, but I'm a real sucker for this. Once they were turned on, they never got turned back off again. Controls are straightforward and responsive. The difficulty is on the higher side of those shooters that I've had the pleasure of playing so far. Becoming proficient took earnest commitment. I had to take the time to understand the enemy wave positions and their firing variations based on rank and playership position. A few boss patterns took some dedicated practice, but most were fairly straightforward to dodge around. Relying on reflexes alone got me pretty far initially, but ultimately ended in failure by the mid-game. When in the early stages of learning, bullet visibility was a bit of a problem. I could easily find myself flying directly into a bullet, not realizing it was there on several occasions. As playtime increased, this eventually stopped happening, likely due to general awareness of what was firing and when, but the visibility could still be a bit better. Bombs were an integral resource both in cleaning out enemy waves and in managing the escalation of rank. I never hoarded bombs beyond a fourth pickup, happily using them to get out of sticky situations or to skip over some boss attacks, phases I didn't care for. Extends were generous enough that they became a viable tool for managing the rank. This required a firm understanding of how to properly recover, though. Considered weapon swapping mitigated Gradius syndrome and eased overall recovery. Rank came into play in this decision as well. Long metal chains and fully powered weapons, though, through the first few stages meant that rank was already very high by the middle of the game, even with judicious use of bombs throughout. This made swapping to green on death the best decision in most cases for its combination of good coverage and higher firepower strength at base level. I would then build this to level 2 or 3 again before swapping, usually back to red. Though blue is strong when fully powered up, its slow startup speed and general lack of precision below maximum power made it my least picked option. When all is said and done, I spent about 80 hours fencing with this one before the clear was mine. Here's a snippet of my playtime on Steam. Around 10-ish hours of that was idle time when I left the game running overnight. Ultimately, I found the challenge of this one nourishing and rewarding. The pursuit of better and better optimization kept me coming back for more. TLDR, the brutal nature of this game fueled my soul. I can see why it would frustrate others though. I would call it hard but fair if you learn the rules. So again, big shout out to Decimus for all the work initially on testing the versions and giving some insight on those and the really good detailed thoughts throughout the month.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hyperdread says, I can't remember which month this question was asked, but is there one feature I like to remove from shmups? Upgradable weapons reset to level 1 upon death, and enemies approaching from behind the player ship. The weapons can still be leveled down on death, but level 1 should be safe for arcade machines and ports, not for home releases. I learned quickly the second boss goes berserk when you destroy one of them. And so what I do is focus on one till it starts blinking red and then switch to the other one. I'm thinking the...
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
That is the strat for the stage 2 boss. Makes it way easier.
I'm thinking the orange weapon is my favorite just for the wide spread. Sure, it doesn't do much damage, but it covers a wider area than the other two and it makes up for it with near constant damage. I managed to get to the last wave in stage 1. Super risky when your weapon's so weak though. I'm done with this game. This is viciously not for me. I don't want to even credit feed with it. At least with Darius 2 or Sagaya, they give you power-ups. You don't even get that here. Yeah, I figure that once I started playing this and got used to, or I should say didn't get used to, but at least got to feel the difficulty, I was like, oh boy, there's going to be some people who just say, who no part out of this, and I get the feeling that's true. But thankfully, it's now October, and we have a much kinder game for Neverwake that we're
Yeah.
playing through right now. I
Yeah.
understand your frustration. It's on here. It's even hard for me sometimes to go back to Crisis Wing. It's like going back to golf, and sometime, no matter what I keep throwing at it or how much I keep playing, I don't seem to get better at it.
Yeah. Master Who jumped in and said, I ended up snagging the Switch version to join in. Excited to give it a shot. It feels like preemptive positioning is vital. The shot feels weak trying to catch enemies on the move, but it works as intended when you're able to intercept enemies on incoming waves. Starting to get the hang of it. Really shooting myself in the foot, realizing you can't level shots up unless you pick up the same color you already have equipped. I was able to get the bonus spawns on stage 1 and get a score of 898,000, though. Game is pretty addictive. Later on, Master Who said, had my best run yet. Went into stage 5, missless but blind. Stage 5 seems a whole lot easier and shorter than 4. That boss is no joke, though. I stuck with Max Green the whole way. Red theoretically seems, quote, best, but Green was giving me more consistent speed kills on problematic enemies before they could fire any shots. And yes, that is a good tip. Green is typically good for that, because of its, as Pie Slice calls it, more consistent damage output. And then Mr. Who said, from my experience with Stage 5's boss, it has some really fast bullet patterns that are hard to tackle blind, and loads of crisscross patterns that are extremely difficult to navigate through with your big hurt box. It seems like the best method I found is to stick to the upper left or upper right of the boss to have all of the crisscross patterns miss, then switch sides to misdirect aim shots. And again, later on, he said, set a new best. Somehow made it through level 6 blind and was able to bomb spam the boss. Left me with pretty little resources for the last level, though. Time to practice more. And then, after some more practice, said, made it to the finish line. I was feeling real dire going into the final boss. I was running real low on resources, and the stupid missiles that fire behind your ship leading to the final boss caught me by surprise and took away 2 lives. Actually made it, though. I think I'll move on to playing something else. This game was more frustrating than I'd like it to be. I just wrapped it up. Here's my final round and score. Able to somehow limp my way to Loop 2 Stage 3's boss. Heads up for anyone who gets to Loop 2. The bonus round ships now shoot at you. LOL. And Master Who also offered some extensive final thoughts. Prefacing this, I've not played any of Toaplan's shooters, including Tatsujin or Truxton. I understand the inspiration and would like to go back and cross-examine those titles against Crisis Wing's gameplay. So my experience will be judging on Crisis Wing itself. I played exclusively the Switch version with 15 hours logged, and was able to, very luckily, clear the game up to Loop 2 Stage 3 in that time, with consistent runs and stage practice. The Switch version plays responsive with no issues across any of the modes. From my understanding, this is the preferred console platform to play on, as the PS version may still have performance issues. Movement speed feels like it hits a sweet spot. Slow enough to micrododge intense situations, fast enough to macro-dodge large attack groups, and rapid fire takes care of itself. No need to ever let off the fire button or manually press the fire button. As far as first impressions go, I was immediately drawn in. The sprite work is nice, with giant chunky enemy ships, and some good color contrast against the backgrounds. I hardly ever lost track of an enemy against the background. The FM synth soundtrack also nails the era it's replicating. Wraps up the entire game in a chugging power rock soundscape, driving you forward, and gives a great feel to the presentation. Unfortunately, while they fit well into the atmosphere, no single track stands out enough to listen to outside the game. Crisis Wing felt great to pick up and play, especially if you're a casual shmup enjoyer. The first 3 levels offer perfect balance between juggling score medals, challenging you to memorize some tricky enemy waves, staying alive long enough to see the more powerful weapons, and pushing yourself to play for some score. Even if you're not looking to clear this game, it has a great casual appeal, and you'll surely have fun if you're looking to get a quick high score attempt. However, if you are a hardcore shmup fan looking to get the elusive 1cc, you'll run into some frustrations very quickly. You'll have to make peace that deaths will be cheap and they will hurt. From level 4 onwards, you're going to be running into multiple situations that will leave you grinding your teeth. There are surprise enemy waves spawning behind your ship. Bullets can be fired extremely close to your ship's position upon an enemy spawn. And some waves overload you with enemies with high health, assuming that you'd been fully powered up. Taking a death anywhere in the game will bring your ship completely down to base power level. Building up to full power can take playing through an entire level, missless, to get back to having a fighting chance. This leads to a lot of situations where you would rather not engage enemies. Mid-bosses time, sometimes the best option is letting the enemy waves fly off screen, letting mid-bosses time out, completely forgetting about metal chaining, and fighting nearly every boss in a blind spot to simply survive, since a single death is absolutely brutal. The challenge is totally fair if you haven't taken a death and have a powered up ship, but you'll be playing a lot of this game tiptoeing around any engagement if you've died somewhere along the way. Limping through stages 6 and 7 are a massive pain if you don't have a fully powered up ship. You simply cannot kill waves fast enough. You'll get stuck running away. My other frustrations with Crisis Wing come from it just being cruel in unusual ways. Stage 5's boss has a second phase that begins offset from the time you clear the first phase, meaning it will either offer fair dodges through its patterns or a complete wall that you must bomb through. And yes, I can confirm this to be true. Both 6 and 7's bosses have patterns that also feel designed for necessary bombing to actually survive, restricting your resources for those moments. Specifically, bombing to actually survive, level up if you pick the same color multiple times, discouraging players with different types for different waves, on top of bringing you to base power upon death, rather than just leveling down one step. Weapon power-ups also change extremely fast on their initial spawn, resulting in a lot of instances where you're picking up the wrong color mistakenly if you're picking them up right away. Hitbox is also the metal collection detection. You'll find often you're missing metals from simply not being accurate enough. Also, as far as I can tell, there is no way to practice the second loop difficulty of the game, even after reaching it myself, unless I'm missing something. Overall, I wish this game would have a revision to allow it to tighten up the most frustrating aspects. Shortening Stage 4's nearly 9-minute long runtime would be a blessing. Stopping the power-ups from cycling colors if you release the fire button would be a fantastic change, similar to Raiden 4, and allowing different colored power-ups to level up each other would allow for more creative routing. Expanding the metal pickup hitbox to be slightly larger than your ship's hurtbox would give a bit more consistency for scoring. Reducing the cruel death full power up for full power down to simply a single level power down to make recovery play less runaway heavy. Fixing the stage 5 boss's second phase to not create undodgeable patterns would be a nice fix too. I would still recommend Crisis Wing despite all this. You'll have a great time playing against your own scores, and having a straightforward shmup without any confusing mechanics can be a breath of fresh air. steel yourself for a long, teeth-grinding journey if you dare tackle its long arcade 1cc runs, is my only warning.
Yeah, I think there's a consistent theme here is tough but fair, and maybe in some cases too tough for people. It's a fine line that is sort of walked upon, and I wonder. It reminded me a lot of the Dark Souls, where people are like, "Yeah, it's tough, but I really like it being tough." Whenever it, just appeals to a certain type of player. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on here. Eat Electric Death says, okay, got Crisis Wave from Steam and got to stage 3 on my first credit. Seems pretty solid so far with no control issues. Looking at the reviews more closely, it seems most of the negative reviews are for the console versions. That seems about right? Go to the Steam page to complain about a version that isn't sold on Steam.
Yeah.
I've gotten to stage 4 a few times, but I haven't been playing much. Just haven't grabbed me compared to Gunblade I was obsessed with. My main issues are Gradius Syndrome is deceptively strong in this game, even though you get one power-up back when you die. All the Zackos that shoot little aim bullets, especially when they shoot right near you. You can get to stage 4 comfortably enough, but then I started to struggle and lose steam. Should try to credit feed through it at least once. Time Attack is surprisingly fun, while Boss Rush is brutal.
Oh yeah, Boss Rush is insane. Definitely not for the faint of heart.
Just like my sinning, not for the faint of heart.
The named boss says, first run went surprisingly well, considering I am sleep deprived. Made it to the stage 4 and got some bonus wave with a bonus and promptly died right after to the mid-boss. But hey, I didn't break the metal chain at all, I guess. First impressions, seems cool enough. I like the bosses. They are tool planny, but somewhat more bullet heavy and intricate. Also, pretty good music. Later on, well, I made it to Area 5. I died to the first enemy there, though. Honestly, game seems a little, I don't know the word, rough maybe? It seems like it should be worse, but it's actually perfectly serviceable. I think it's pretty good. 10-hour long stage 4, that Truxton 2 influence is showing. I managed to trigger a stage 3 super carrier at least. Also, the stage 4 bonus wave is at the part with all the big ships and blue Amy enemies. I think you need to destroy all the big ships in the level and maybe also the small ones, but not the ones in the different parts, in the different part that come up and down. The medium green ones aren't part of it, at least in the other parts, I don't know. So far, I've been sticking to green pretty much exclusively. It feels the best to me. Later on, I made some progress too. Actually got to stage 5 on 2 lives, and then Chain died for no reason because I forgot I had bombs apparently. I wonder if I can actually beat this if I keep going with 1 or 2 runs a day, since that is honestly surprisingly effective and it's my usual way of playing. Something about memory? And then, holy crap, I fluked my way through stage 6 and to the stage 6 boss. I almost killed it, but I got bullet held. Stage 6 seems fine, just speed kill, less memo. And then later on, I did it! I threw in the second loop on accident because I was too elated, but I don't care. Holy crap. I don't want to go on about whatever too much, but I cannot believe I cleared it. That run was so good. I died in stage 2 boss and dropped the chain once, but that was about it. Also, I got telefragged by the stage 6 bonus wave that I didn't know how I activated. That was cool. I was listening to the soundtrack and came across the stage 7 music, and I was like, wow, this doesn't sound fitting for a final stage, but in-game, it totally 100% is. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah. Honestly, I had stage 4 pretty much down since it was long, and I struggled with it. I mentally routed it out. I honestly think stage 5 is the hardest in the game by a good bit. Weird enemies, has those invulnerable ones too. The ones with the fact fast, defeat Big Crusher in final. No, excuse me. And the ones with the fast bullets that also aimed. Lots of nasty enemies all around, in my opinion. Wow. 10% have the defeat Big Crusher in final stage achievement for the first half of the final boss. And only 6% have the final boss beaten achievement. It's pretty tough, honestly. I'm glad I knew what to expect. The game is pretty, and then boom, last boss immediately starts going ape. Holy crap, I don't know what to do now that I've cleared this. I don't really want to 2-all it, but I think I'm satisfied with this game at least for a long while. Maybe Boss Rush actually. This game has that, could try it later. Definitely glad this month showed me this game. I enjoy it a lot. And then for final thoughts, Crisis Wing put me off a little initially. It felt off with the mild lack of feedback and fake pixel art aesthetic, but it sucked me in pretty quickly. This game helped me discover that I might actually like Toaplan style vertical memo games more than I thought I did, and made me try some of the classics after I got the clear in Crisis Wing. I think it's a pretty solid game. It doesn't do anything innovative, but I enjoyed it a lot. Plus, great soundtrack.
Yeah, I think that we're seeing recurring theme. People who ran against the wall and said this wall is not too high. Or sorry, this wall is too high, versus people who ran against the wall and said, I can do this, and then were surprised at themselves. This is sort of like the Dark Souls dilemma, right? There are people who are like, yeah, this is hard, but I know I can do it, and then go through, and then people who just hit it and go, I can't, I don't want to do this. This isn't for me. And you know, it's this is where I kept going back for, like, do I draw a line? Like, do I like this? Maybe I'm turning into a masochist. I'm not sure. So we'll get into it a little bit here, but first let's hear from Overdrone. A couple credits in, you can react to stuff in the Steam version, unlike the terrible PS4 version. Also, the PS4 version is a lower version, number 2. It was never updated at all. What weapon are people favoring? Blue seems the best for damage, but I don't know. Just did a run with blue, marginal improvement, but made some dumb mistakes. Like trying to collect an enemy after I blew its armor off, but not sure why I thought it was just a power-up. Enemies are really spongy. In something like Tatsujin, you point blank to them to overcome this, but it's not really a thing in Crisis Wing, not in the same way anyways. Running in this game on my potato work laptop doesn't skip a beat, which is really handy since stuff like Gunvein were beyond its ability. I can see the 5th boss is a bit of a wall. There you have it, proof that Crisis Wing doesn't bake your potato.
And finally, Mr. Vasteel said, so I have a problem with this game already. Everything is unreasonably spongy. And that was definitely a bit of a recurring theme.
Yeah, so what about your thoughts?
Yeah. Before I get into that, apologies. I forgot to tabulate the scores, but I will say I'm pretty sure that most everybody, save perhaps for Eat Electric Death, scored higher than I did in the month. Particularly with those clears of well over 2 million points.
So is this where we just insert the Oprah? You get a high score. You get a high score.
Pretty much.
All right.
In terms of final thoughts, this one's difficult for me because, as I said earlier, I had a bit of a roller coaster experience. Initially, I thought this is going to be hard. Then I progressed quickly. Then I hit the wall, and I never truly got all the way over the wall. I sort of got over the wall to some degree, but then instead of climbing down gracefully on the other side, I sort of Humpty Dumptied my way down. And that's kind of where I've ended up. I did a couple runs earlier to see if I could approach the game from a slightly lower rank perspective, let my metal chain drop a couple times, bomb a little bit more frequently, stick mostly with weapon power level 2, and so forth. But while in one of my runs earlier, I did manage to get all the way to stage 7, it really didn't make the game feel that much more approachable. So, I don't know. But I will say I wanted to rage quit, and there were definitely a couple of streams where I rage quit. One particular stream where I quit early. I typically always try to go about 2 hours on a shmup stream. A couple of times I went over that with this, but one time in particular, it was just right about an hour and 45 minutes. I said, I can't do this anymore. And pretty much rage quit and raided somebody at that point because I was just done with it for the night. However, something interesting here is that this game, I have felt oddly compelled to continue to play. And I'm not 100% sure what it is. But I feel motivated to continue to chip away at this game and eke out that clear. I'd sure like to be able to say that I've cleared it. And so I think I'm going to continue to chip away at this a little bit and see if there's any way that I can bag that clear. Because I feel like despite all of my qualms with the game, and there are several, there's still a really good game under the surface here. And I want to like this game more than I probably do, because I feel like it does so much right. The presentation is largely excellent. The designs are very good. The shooting and dodging action is solid. The toe plan nature of the level design and the flow really does kind of give you that we have Truxton 2 at home sort of feel. And of course, that's what I alluded to with the joke at the top of the show. But while I do feel like it has a very strong Truxton 2 vibe, I would not call it a blatant copycat, or a loving homage with just enough of its own identity to truly be a unique thing. I feel like the soundtrack helps the game get by on more than it might otherwise have. And because the extends come so frequently, I do feel like it's worth putting some effort in to see what you can do with it. It's worth some effort to see what it looks like at both higher and lower rank, and then kind of decide where you're going to go from there. So, yeah, I guess just to recap, I had my frustrations with this game, and I think they're legitimate concerns, but overall, I do think this is a quality game. My hat's off to Pie Slice for basically doing everything himself. Coding, graphics, music, etc. It couldn't have been easy. And while I don't think it reaches the heights of something like Axiom Verge, for example, which is a one-man show, it definitely has a certain quality about it that I think can't be denied, and also makes it compelling enough that some of us continue to feel drawn to this game despite the fact that we're frustrated with it. I guess that's it's either a sign of good design, a sign of some of the player base being a little crazy, and maybe a little column A and a little column B. What about you?
Yeah, this is one of those ones where you can't like immediately recommend it. If someone were to ask you, "Hey, I want to play Crisis Win," it's sort of weird. My immediate reaction would be, "Do you Dark Souls, or do you? How do you deal with failure in a game? How do you deal with repeated failure in a game? Is this something that you can get over, or are you going to say this is not for me and move on?" Both are very valid things, right? It's really going to depend upon the player. I think that this type of difficulty is interesting in that it's not. I mean, thinking back to some of the stuff that we dealt with as kids, that shared frustration that we all felt with either trying to land on the aircraft carrier in Top Gun, or to try and get past a certain point in the game. Those were due to limitations of the technology at the time, and sometimes it was just cryptic, weird stuff that forced you to buy Nintendo Power. But that shared camaraderie that brought up the shared frustrations that brought out the angry video game nerd. It's sort of that dials it into that type of frustration, or knowing, oh, I was supposed to do that. It's not quite as like obscure as something that you would get with a King's Quest or Sierra game. It's just enough where it's balanced, and those of you who have played a lot of adventure games may or may not agree on this, but I like to akin Crisis way into more of a LucasArts game, right, where you can't. Hey, I forgot to pick up the pie when I was in this area. Now I can't get any farther in the game. 7 hours later. Sierra games were notorious for forcing those type of decisions. You're like, oh, I should have picked up the pie. Now I'm screwed. But with the LucasArts, you couldn't die because you had to get stuff to progress. So I think that what we're dealing with here is a frustratingly fair game. A lot of the stuff on here you'd have to know a route through, or be able to memorize through and get through there. And the people who are finding hidden talents with that, or people who already do that, are excited for us. Like Mark MSX, in his review of this game, he really loved it. Well, I found it infuriating and frustrating at times. And it really depends upon the type of player you are. Do you like learning how to route and memorize the game, or, oh, this enemy's going to fire this bullet pattern, so I need to be here? How much of that do you want in your game? And those of you who are more inclined to that, well, like it just sort of like within Dark Souls and that type of gameplay. Those of you who want to deal with the challenge and really get that sense of accomplishment when you beat something, will get some enjoyment out. Or people who, hey, I want to play games to be entertained. I want it to relax. I don't want to be, to get frustrated and to, as on here, this is my type of stuff, are going to be more akin to playing something like Gana Blade, where where it's not as challenging as far as smacking the player, everything like Mo, Larry, and Curly every time you make a mistake. It's gonna hit different people different ways, and because of that, it makes it hard to recommend. Some people will end up finding immense enjoyment of it, and some people won't. It's based upon the player that you are and what you do for the hobby. And one of these types of things is, the reason why we do the Shmup Club and why we keep it to a month is so people can try different things. Some some people are just going to be utterly frustrated. It's, I guess similar to say everyone saying, "Hey, this won 7 Sundance Academy Awards. This is great," and he goes says like, "No, no, no, no. I'd rather watch Predator 16. I want some action. I want some explosions in my film. I'd go to the movies to relax and just to turn my mind off. I don't go there to think about, the problems that could occur in the indigenous peoples of the Amazon rainforest. I don't care if it's highly critical acclaim. That's not what I do." And both those thoughts are valid. I think for me personally, that despite it really, really, really frustrated me and hitting many, many, many walls, there is something that in there that catches me and keeps me wanting to come back, and is like, so akin to golf again. We're going back to golf, or maybe even bowling for some people. I know I can do better than this. I know I can keep it, and this is something that I can overcome. And that release or that endorphin hit that you get when you finally overcome something is one of the greatest pleasures that somebody could have as far as coming. I mean, that's the human experience, is to get to overcome challenges. And that helps give us meaning to our lives. I'm not trying to wax philosophical on here. I'm just saying, if you get the amount of enjoyment when someone first beats Super Mario Brothers after playing for hours and hours trying to go, I finally saved the princess, or I finally saved Zelda. I beat Ganon. I mean, everyone's got a memory of when they overcame those hurdles. And if you can do that for something that's really hard like this, it's going to give you a great deal of satisfaction. But again, it's not going to be for everyone. For me, I liked it. It'll be something I keep coming back to. But at the same time, I'm also pretty likely to rage quit it. So, wait till, final recommendation, wait till it goes on Steam sale and try it out for yourself, or try when it goes on sale in the eShop. Give it a shot, because you may just be pleasantly frustrated by it.
Yeah, I would say if you're a Toe Plant fan, definitely check it out. If you like a challenge, then it is probably one to look at. Or if you're really into old school shmups and you want something that maybe has a slightly more approachable difficulty curve, then this might be worth a look as well.
Yeah, so I have to echo that the enemies, at least when you're dealing with your pea shooter here, appear to take entire clip of bullets before they even show any hint that they might be having trouble there.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, Pie Slice did tell me that the entire game was balanced around the level 1 power, and that the power-ups don't scale the way you think they do. So the extra damage percentage that you're getting from one level to the next is not a huge jump. Mathematically, that may be the way the game calculates, but I don't know.
Yeah,
the feel isn't quite there.
I think that I will say that when it comes to this month's games, we're recording this October, that Never Awake, it feels like a good release for this. It is all the pent-up stress from Crisis Waiting is just sort of washed away with Never Awake. Never Awake approaches with like anybody can beat this game by giving you constant flow of power-ups that you can choose to enable or disable. And by giving you that option to give yourself some iframes within like extra health or something, it really does add more to the game. And I think that might be something that will be a recommendation for his next game, is put in an option to, I start joking, it's referred to as midlife crisis mode, but is put in an option that will reduce the the headache or the difficult or something that will give people on there, put in an M2 save states and allow people to replay stuff or try it. But add something so that way there's more accessibility. Or after you play the game enough and you've got your points on there, you can use your points to spend in a shop. And in a shop you can buy easy mode, or you can add in more hit points or more bombs. It'd be a nice way to allow people who don't want to deal with the developer balance or do stuff. I think the best way that we could get this idea across is Mega Man games, right? The people who go hardcore in those go, oh no, I'm going to do nothing but the Mega Blaster. Or the pistols. Remember, it's one of those interesting block cards. But I'm going to do nothing but the default weapon. Everyone's like, okay, so I got to do a rock, paper, scissors. And I'm going to use Cut Man on this. I'm going to use Bomb Man on this. Or I'm going to use Electro Beam on this. I think if we were sort of given a duality system, similar to that, or using your points that you get from metal in order to unlock stuff and buy stuff from a shop, a lot of the frustrations that people feel this game would be gone, and this would make this a lot more accessible. Mega Man always walked the fine line of giving you the option to do it hard if you wanted to, but that wasn't part of what was required. And because this is part of what's required, it does seem to be turning people off. So if you were trying to make this more of a broader appeal, add in another mode, or make it so that way it's sort of like a badge of honor for the hardcore, the people who really want that challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense. My recommendation would be, if possible, make the practice mode just a little bit more granular. I would say something like the Mushihime-sama or Espegaluda 2 practice modes are great examples. Not only can you pick your stage, your checkpoint, and weapon type as your starting, but it would also be helpful to be able to pick your weapon power level so that you can practice. Let's say I know I can consistently get to the stage 3 mid boss with this weapon at this power level. It would be nice to be able to choose that checkpoint with that power level so that you can build that consistency with practicing that area. Right now, it's just you choose your weapon, you get dropped in with level 1, and then depending on the checkpoint, there may or may not be any weapon pickups. Most likely they will be if you're choosing a mid boss or a stage end boss, but it isn't going to give you everything, so you may not necessarily be able to get to full power the way that you want to. I initially was put off by the lack of this option in the practice mode, but I did find utility in it because it helped me learn to route the stage 3 and stage 5 bosses, and ultimately would be useful for any of them if I needed to.
Yeah, as I stated earlier, I agree with you. I think that the M2 style save states would be a long way for really learning how to route the game and reduce a lot of the frustrations that were already there, or just allowing people to keep going until they. My oldest was really excited when he beat Sonic 3. In Sonic 2, I'm looking at so like, okay, well, he beat it using save states, but to him that's a victory. I'm like, you know what? I don't care if people say it's not valid or that was sort of cheating. Who cares? And to him, that's a victory, and he enjoyed it. And that's what I don't want people to miss out on a well-built game because of its difficulty. And I think that adding in some of these features in order to reduce the barrier of entry will be going a long way to get people to enjoy the game more and to recommend it more than to say, oh, it's just for hardcore people, or it was too difficult to me.
Makes sense.
All right, so we are discussing this in October, where we are currently in Neverwake. I am amazed at how quickly I'm getting through this game. Truth in advertising here, I did play this game when it came out and beat it, but I remember this game being a lot harder. Maybe I've just been playing way too much Toho or other STGs because I'm flying through this. I think I started later than you, and then I ended up making it to the end within like a day and a half. So,
Oh, that's crazy.
yeah, I guess that's just what happens when you're fully caffeinated. Miracles can happen. Did you do any more streams after the first initial run where you went to stage 3?
No, I had a plumber come over to my apartment a couple nights to fix a problem with the toilet in my apartment here. So, I am planning on continuing to stream. It's just going to be there's going to be less streaming in October because I'm busy.
Well, if he was wearing a tie, he's no real plumber.
This is true.
Also, you probably flushed Millionaire down the toilet, right? That's how it got stuck.
Not quite.
In November, we have Next Game. As right on, even I don't remember what game it is.
November's game, we'll just we had something planned. We're gonna have to change it because of various circumstances. So I think what we'll do is we'll announce November's game at a later date, but TBA for the moment.
It's a mystery to everybody.
Even us.
All right. Before we go, we'd like to thank Itrem for the logo. I'd like to thank Kogusu for the intro and outro music. I'd like to thank everybody at the Playcast and Collectorcast, especially Duke Togo. I'd like to thank MetalFRO for streaming the game of the month, as well as keeping us entertained with his many rage quits and parrot dogs. And I'd like to thank him again, once again, and everybody who helped work for the awesome shirts there. I can't wait for the fish and chips shirt.
Yeah, I need to get going on that concept so I can make that happen.
You know what? Let's just go with MS-DOS 5.0, and we'll go with bananas for the game for November. How's that? Everyone else can play Scorched Earth.
Thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next month.